Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this time, we, as a Group 3, we would like to presentate about the study of language. The study of language itself, it explained about the history of linguistics through time by time. But before we're going through explanations, we would like to introduce ourselves first. The first member of Group 3, there is Davina Ayu. The second, there is me, myself, Fauzan Mubarak. And the third one is Tria Mulya. So without any further, I think we should go to the explanation. Talking about history, there are four main eras that the lecturer is going to tackle. And those are, the first is the 19th century that focus on historical linguistics that will be explained by Davina Ayu. The second one is early to mid 20th century that focus on descriptive linguistics or structural linguistics that will be explained by Tria Mulya. And the third one, there is mid to late 20th century that focus on generative linguistics and universal grammar. And the last era is 21st century that focus on future trends in linguistics. And both of the last era is going to be explained by myself.
First, we will talk about the historical of linguistics. Before 19th century, language in the Western world was interest mainly philosophers. Plato is said to have been the first person to distinguish between nouns and verbs. In 1786, many people regard that year as the birthday of linguistics. Sir William Jones, an Englishman, said that Sanskrit, the Old Indian language, Greek, Latin, Celtic, and Germanic all had striking structural similarities. In 19th century, linguists were interested in studying how different languages are related to each other. Their aim was to write comparative grammars for the various members of Indo-European language family in order to reconstruct the hypothetical ancestor of Indo-European languages. This emphasis on language change eventually led to major theoretical advances in diachronic linguistics. For instance, a group of scholars centered around Leipzig and nicknamed the Young Grammarians claim that language change is regular. They argued that if, in any word of a given dialect, one sound changes into another, the change will also affect all other occurrences of the same sound in similar phonetic surroundings.
Early to mid-20th century, the emphasis shifted from language change to language description. Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist, pointed out that all items in the language are interlinked. He was the first one to propose that languages should be conceptualized as a system. He suggested that language is defined by its relationship to all the others. His insistence that language is a carefully built structure of interwoven elements initiated the era of structural linguistics. In the USA, linguistics began as a branch of anthropology. Anthropologists were interested in recording the culture of the fast-dying American Indian tribes, and the languages of these tribes were one aspect of this culture. Leonard Bloomfield developed methods to describe the structures of unwritten languages, pioneering an approach that is called descriptive linguistics. Bloomfield considered that linguistics should deal objectively and systematically with observable data. So, he was more interested in the way linguistic items were arranged together to form bigger units rather than in meaning. Bloomfield and his followers paid great deal of attention or the fine analytical techniques that would enable them to uncover accurately the linguistic units of undocumented languages based on a corpus of utterances collected from native speakers. These techniques are called discovery procedures. Over the years, these procedures had become so complicated that linguistics were of little interest and used to scholars from other fields. The time was ripe for a revolution.
Now we are moving to mid to late 20th century that focus on generative linguistics and universal grammar. The American linguist Noam Chomsky agrees with Bloomfield's idea that linguistic theory needs to be able to lay down a grammar set of rules that is able to distinguish possible from impossible sentence in a language. Unlike Bloomfield, Chomsky believed that such a theory should be more than a description of all sentence, but also sentences that have not been produced yet. Chomsky pointed out that anyone who knows a language must have internalized a set of rules which specify the sequence permitted in their language. Thus, Chomsky shifted attention away from detailed descriptions of actual utterance and started asking questions about how the system of that language generates these utterance. In Chomsky's opinion, a linguist's task was to discover these rules, which constitute the grammar of the language in question. Therefore, he used the word grammar interchangeably to mean, on the one hand, a person's internalized rules, and on the other hand, a linguist's description of these rules, which he labeled a generative grammar. Such a grammar should be perfectly explicit, in that nothing is left to the imagination. The rules must be precisely formulated in such a way that anyone will be able to separate the well-formed sentence from the ill-formed ones. Chomsky pointed out that as all humans are rather similar, their internalized language mechanisms are likely to have common properties. Therefore, he argued that linguists should concentrate on finding language universals. Chomsky's later work, which is called Minimalist Program, became more and more abstract as he tried to specify broad general principles underlying all languages. And now we are moving to the last era. It is future trends in linguistics. Chomsky's generative grammar and his interest in studying language universals have directed attention towards the language potential of human beings. Huge numbers of psychologists, neurologists, anthropologists, sociologists, and philosophers have begun to take a greater interest in language and linguistics. Linguists have started to look at language as a collection of different cognitive and linguistic abilities. Linguists have started a quest for a less rigid framework to describe and analyze language. Optimality theory is an example of such a framework. Optimality theory suggests that the grammatical forms of a language arise from the optimal satisfaction of conflicting constraints. Linguistic evidence can now be provided by methods developed in corpus linguistics, which refers to the study and use of computerized databases for linguistic research. I think we've already explained about the history of linguistics through time by time. Thank you for all the attentions. We would like to apologize if there's any miscorrection or any mistakes during the presentations. I hope this video would bring the advantages and values to anyone who watched this video. I think that's all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you next time.